Hey guys, so for this video, I'm going to talk about how you can successfully W key and be more aggressive. As I'm sure you all know by now, W keying is arguably the most effective playstyle in Fortnite Chapter 2. It will help you get more points in tournaments, more kills in game, and have way more fun than playing passively. The thing about W keying though is that it's not that easy to be good at. If it was, then you wouldn't be watching this video, right? I thought the same exact thing until I sat down and analyzed the most successful W keyers in the game. I studied their mechanics, their decision making, their settings. I literally looked at everything they did to see what separates them from everyone else. After numerous days of VOD reviews and going back to my notes, I've come up with a solid list of tips that I know will help you all out. So without further ado, let's get right on into it. To start off, I want to address a big misconception in the community regarding W keyers. No, it's not that they're all on controller or that they're all Metro fanboys, it's the perception that they're all brain dead idiots who push their opponents for no good reason. While this may be true for a lot of W keyers, it is not the case for the best ones. Pros like Unknown Army and Aqua are extremely intelligent players. They know how to hold angles, take smart peeks, and make optimal edits in fights. Just because they play aggressive does not mean they are stupid. Don't believe me? Let's take a look at this clip from Kiriachi to help prove my point. Kiriachi is in the middle of a solo event when out of nowhere, he starts getting pushed by an absolute psychopath. After building up, he does some quick damage and establishes high ground in the fight. Once more, however, his psycho opponent builds up, gets destroyed by 2 shotgun shots, and boxes up to heal. This is when Kiriachi becomes a W keyer and where I want you guys to pay attention. Notice how as Kiriachi pressures his opponent's wall, he not only moves to the left for a right hand peek, but he also builds a wall and edits the top right corner of it for more protection. That's how safely Kiriachi and other top tier W keyers play out fights. And yes, the ending of the clip is kind of ironic since Kiriachi goes full force into his opponent's box, but my point still stands. So the takeaway here is to realize W keying is not just about running into 1x1s without any thought. If you want to be a successful W keyer, you have to learn how to read your opponent's plays and position yourself safely behind your own builds. Anytime you don't and you just hold M1 and W or your right bumper and left stick down, you're putting yourself in a 50-50 engagement with your opponent, which you never want to do. Moving on to my next tip for playing aggressive, and we have being confident. In case you guys missed it, last weekend was the open qualifier for the FNCS Invitational Solo Tournament that ends in a few weeks. There were over 20,000 people alone competing on the NAE server, yet only 184 of them qualified for the next round. One of those few people was the man on your screen named Flawless. Flawless went into this match with only 1 game left and less than 100 points under his belt. Regardless, he did the unthinkable by dropping a 30 bomb. No, you are not hearing things. The kid went around W keying everyone he could lay his eyes on and ended the match with 30 kills, bringing him up to 5th place on the day. Now, before you say anything about how he had a mythic drum gun or how his opponents weren't that good, you can't help but admire his pure confidence. Throughout his entire W key rampage, Flawless never hesitated to take a fight. The kid was so dang confident in himself that he would place a cone in all the boxes he jumped in to make sure the other player could not escape. That's obviously something I would not recommend doing considering what we just talked about, but I do think it goes to show how important being confident truly is. Really quickly, I want you guys to think back to all the times in games where you were the one being pushed. It could have been after you got lasered in the back, or it could have been for seemingly no reason at all. Do you remember what you felt and what was going through your head? Probably nothing else except getting the heck out of that situation alive. What that's called is your physiological reaction, your fight or flight response. This response will cause you to sweat, shake, tunnel vision, become more nervous, basically everything you don't want to happen in a normal Fortnite 1v1. The thing is, you cannot stop it from happening. It's a completely normal reaction to the idea of having your game ended and potentially your tournament ruined. So what I'm trying to say is that as a W keyer, you want your opponent to feel that sense of panic themselves. That means constantly putting pressure on them as well as not letting them gain back any confidence through any sort of outplay. On top of that, it means that you have to be the aggressor in the fight. Way too many people forget this, and before they push someone, they end up playing defensively inside a box since they can never make the first move.
But Jarian, how could I push people if they push me first?
That's a really good question, little Timmy, and as NRG Unknown shows here, it's all about acting confident. Even though Unknown loses the Bloom battle, he still builds up to try and win high ground over his opponent. Additionally, even though he has to take a minute to heal, he still applies relentless pressure on his opponent as if he were full HP and ends up winning the fight. Thus, the takeaway is is if you want to be more aggressive, you need to start playing confidently by taking control of the engagement and forcing your opponent into a bad spot. The following tip for improving at W keying is to make sure you do it at the right time. Remember all the pros I talked about before that don't just mindlessly jump into their opponent's boxes? Well, the same concept applies for choosing who and when to fight. Most top tier W keyers don't just randomly push people who are 200 HP. Moreover, they don't push people if they don't have time to, and they don't continue to W key into the late game. For example, in this clip we see Wolfie's doing what he usually does by finding someone to fight. Then, after basing up near zone, Wolfie sees his target box up right above him. Like a madman, Wolfie's immediately heavy snipes the guy's wall and attempts to get into his box. The guy edits out, Wolfie's misses his shot, and very surprisingly, Wolfie's decides to disengage. I don't know about you guys, but if I had that insane loadout and was already that deep in, I'm not sure if I would have been able to control myself. The reason Wolfie's can is he knows continuing that fight could ruin his entire game. The storm was coming in, he was on the edge of zone with the entire lobby looking at him, and he was at a shield disadvantage. Even if he somehow went back into the storm and won the fight, he would have gotten focused by the rest of the server while inside a 5 damage per second zone. Had it been the first or second circle with not that many people around him, sure, it would have been a different story. The fact of the matter is, it was 4th zone with 50 people left alive, and it was not the right time to push. So the takeaway here is to remember to W key with a purpose. If you're already stacked on loot and you have a great position in zone, there's really no need to W key. This is especially the case if you're in a stacked late game lobby because you'll get third partied in every fight. Then vice versa, if you do desperately need an impact frag or you want to get more points in a cup game, do not just push someone you have no info on. You at least want to tag them and rationalize why you're pushing them, because anytime you do not, you're putting yourself in position to ruin your entire match. My second to last point of discussion for becoming a better W keyer is one that will probably generate a lot of arguing down below. If you can't guess what it is by that comment, it's your aim. When it comes to W keying in Chapter 2 Season 2, aim is the most important skill you have. It's more important than building for piece control, it's more important than editing for outplays, it's even more important than game sense most of the time. This is why when you look at all the top tier W keyers, a ton of them happen to play on controller. And before I say anything else, I really don't want this to become a discussion on aim assist. I think we can all agree it's very strong on PC, and because of that, I think it's also logical to say it gives controller players an advantage when it comes to W keying. They know whenever they jump in boxes, they'll hit way more shots than a keyboard and mouse player. Therefore, they're way more comfortable in close range situations, meaning they're gonna be more confident. That, alongside your aim, is something a ton of players overlook when it comes to why they're not that good at W keying. They know their aim is not up to par, and as a result, aren't confident to take 50-50 fights. Controller players, on the other hand, are, and it's why way more of them have aggressive playstyles. So the takeaway is not to switch to controller like Epic Whale did, it's to make sure you train your aim. Don't let aim assist be the reason you don't want to practice. There's nothing you can do about that. What there is something you have control over though is your aim, which is why you should be improving it every single day. Now, as far as how you should be improving your aim, I think you guys know the solution. If you're on PC, it's to use third-party aim trainers like Kovacs, and if you're on console or you don't want to spend money, it's to use in-game creative aim trainers like Scavix. Both of them will help you out a lot and improve your close range aim. The real topic I think you guys are all curious about though, which will also be the way I'll end the video, is how you can personally practice to W key. The absolute worst thing you can do is play in scrims. Have you ever wondered why a lot of mid-tier players do well in endgames but cannot consistently make it there? The answer is because they don't practice fighting. All they practice are stacked late games and rotations. That's not to say practicing those things are bad, because they do help out a lot. They just do not help you improve at W keying or making it out of open qualifiers. Therefore, my advice, straight from the king of W keying himself, NRG Unknown, is to get into as many fights as you possibly can. That means playing arena and pushing every person you see, grinding public match solos and solo squads with the same goal, as well as doing realistic 1v1s. All you want is experience fighting players of different skill levels, and that's what all of these practice methods will help you do. Lastly, I really don't think it matters how you divide up your time for these scenarios. They all have different trade-offs, like arena having longer queue times, pubs having worse players, and realistic 1v1s not being on the actual map. So practice with them however you like, just make sure you're not spending your time sitting around doing nothing. Overall guys, that's my ultimate guide to W keying and playing more aggressive. To sum it up, make sure you play out engagements intelligently by holding angles and taking optimal peaks, be confident to make your opponent nervous, only take good fights you know you can win, and prioritize improving your aim over everything else. On top of that, to get better at W keying, go into arena, solo squads, or hype nights, and push absolutely everyone you see. The more fights you get into, the better you'll be at W keying and playing aggressively. So if you guys enjoyed the video or you learned something new, do be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and to turn on post notifications. Shout out to everyone using code Jarian. The 600k subscriber giveaway has officially ended. I hope you guys all got a chance to enter. Advanced Club will be selecting the winner soon and will let me know, so please be patient. Otherwise, that's it from me, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.